Good morning. I'd like to call this Community Relations and Public Affairs Committee meeting for Monday, May 2nd, 2022 to order. There's a one-item agenda, the city communications plan. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just add, it's like 100 and something pages, so this should be good, Shannon. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, Shannon, take it away.
Well, good morning, council members. We will not be going over every single one of those 100 pages, so hopefully it doesn't take us more than our allotted time. But I am here this morning to talk about our draft communications plan, and I just want to put the emphasis on draft. We still want to do some internal review, and I know our communications specialist, Donna Feliciano, is actively looking at, adding some additional photos and content as well. So this is a draft, and, I'm here today just to provide kind of an update on where we're at, what's in the draft, and also get some feedback from this committee. So with that, I will share my screen and we can go over some of the elements in the draft communications plan. So just to start off, just to provide some context in, the makings of the communications plan, what we wanted to do was take a look at, where we were as a jurisdiction. And so you can see that the city itself has grown and is going to continue to grow in a lot of ways. So I've just provided some demographic data up at the very beginning of the communications plan to kind of set the tone, looking at, again, the growth in the city and then also the diversification of the population of the city in a variety of different ways. So there is ample demographic and other information data provided. Another thing just to keep in mind, and I'm sure you all are very familiar with this, is technologies continue to evolve, especially social media and communication technologies. So you can see here on the picture on the left, those are all kind of social media platforms, and there are many, many more that are not being shown on there. And you can see also from the snippet of the article on the right that these preferences change throughout time. So if you think back over a decade ago, really email was the main way to connect with individuals. And now if looking here at 2022, emails might not be the best way to reach everybody. So really trying to make sure that we are continually looking at what kind of technologies are out there and being able to leverage the existing technologies. In the draft communications plan, you'll also find a little bit deeper dive than just the general demographics that are provided at the beginning. And this is a Esri tapestry segmentation. So this is really looking at kind of some market data in addition to just strictly demographic data to break down individuals found in Lacy to a greater degree and to really kind of get some more focus on, things that they're interested in, things that they're involved in. So that way, when the city is looking to craft messages in the future, it serves as a foundation for how to frame those conversations and connect with those individuals. So with the communications plan, there were several places that the city did get input from the community as well as the city staff. So the big one recently was the Lacy Cares initiative. And again, this was an initiative that the city underwent back in 2020 and 2021, where we reached out via a survey to see what interest areas there were for community members, what their preferred communication methods were, and what they wanted to see the city of Lacy be in the future. In addition to that, there was also a business survey performed in May of 2020, and this really engaged our local businesses again on how they wanted to be reached and what their aspirations were for the city. Previous to that, there was also a strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threat known as a SWOT analysis done with city council and city staff. And you can find all of this information in the appendixes of the draft communication plan. So if you had more questions about some of the information that was pulled from the business survey or the Lacy Cares or the SWOT, please refer to those appendixes. In addition to those three outreach and engagement opportunities, we also looked at best practices, not just with local jurisdictions, but beyond that as well. Best communication practices here in 2022. So on the SWOT analysis, again, this was done with the city council and the city staff. There were a number of key elements that were pulled out, and I just want to highlight a couple of them. Number one was increasing the use of visual materials, using other communications such as text alerts, finding innovative ways to reach out to community members, being consistent with message both internally and externally, expediting website enhancements, conducting interactive engagements and meetings, and then having a stronger social media presence. In addition, like I said, we also looked at best practices from other jurisdictions and businesses as well to see what are communication tools that are out there that the city might be able to leverage in the future so that we could connect with individuals in the city of Lacy. Some key messages that came out through, again, the Lacy Cares and the business survey were really emphasizing our safe and clean community, our welcoming and dynamic community, how military friendly we were, how business friendly we were, and how affordable Lacy was and is. So using all of this information, you can see in the draft, we have come up with 3 goals, and under each goal, there are objectives and then targeted actions. And so goal number 1 is really internally focused, and that is augment internal communications to increase cross-departmental collaboration and awareness. And really we want to get all of our staff members on the same page, and that way we can provide the same information, whether it's to internal or external community members and partners. So several of the targeted actions that are listed under this goal are to have a organization-wide intranet communication system. So this would essentially be kind of like a website for internal users so that you could look up different information applicable to our city staff in one location. So this would be something that provides news, announcements, maybe access to documents, policies, etc. So really developing a place where staff members can go and be able to easily access information in an organized, searchable, efficient manner. The second targeted action is to create a document management system, and this is something that the city has been working on, and we will continue to work on through the communications plan. Having a comprehensive web and app accessible 311. So I know with the new website, we have our 311 system, and we really want to make that much more robust moving forward, where individuals will be able to download a City of Lacy app and be able to contact the city or send the city information or document things that are happening, but also where the city can push out information. So if we had an announcement that we wanted all users to know about programming or events or policy changes, this would be another mechanism in which the city would be able to push communications for those who opt in to those communications. Citywide style guides, a communications onboarding program, and then we all know that technology is continuing to change over time. What was technology 6 years ago has been really different and improved over the last 6 years. So we know that we want to continually, see where we're at and see if there are other tools that might be helpful for the city of Lacy to communicate with, again, internal and external stakeholders moving forward. And then also to increase the accessibility of city documents online. So that way individuals maybe looking for things can just directly go find them in a repository rather than having to communicate, to staff members to find documents. So it's really being accessible to the public by allowing them to search on their own for documents that they may be looking for. With each of the goals, we also have an anticipated timeline. And so I'm not going to go through the entire timeline. I just want to point out that we really want to show when we think we're going to be getting to this. So you can see the light blue boxes are the implementation. So that would be when we're working on it, getting it started and getting it released. And then you can see with the green boxes, and a lot of those are continued in perpetuity for the plan. And that is because we don't just want to say, hey, we've done this. We know that we need to go back and always be taking a look at it, making enhancements or continuing those services moving forward. So moving on to goal 2, this one is more externally focused.
Could I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
Could you go back one slide?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So moving on to goal 2, again, this is more externally focused, and that is continue to evaluate and enhance external communications to provide transparent, timely, and accessible information to community stakeholders. You can see our objectives are really about connecting and engaging with the greater Lacy community. The targeted actions under this goal include leveraging email, text, and other technologies where end users can opt in. I know I talked about that with the 311 system, but also having a comprehensive place where you could sign up for all of the email newsletters you might be interested in receiving, and then eventually also texts. So if you wanted to get texts on, let's just say development projects, traffic detours, et cetera, you could opt in to get those. So currently on the new website, we do have a one-stop location for subscribing to email notifications. The idea with this is that we continue to refine, what was available there, and then eventually expand it to a text messaging option as well in the future.
Very cool.
Conducting regular multifaceted community outreach and engagement efforts. So under this, we have in there conducting a biannual, so every 2 years, a statistically valid satisfaction and sentiment survey, so we can get feedback from the community members on certain items. It doesn't just have to be communication led, it could be beyond that. So looking at, just say, for example, transportation, infrastructure, land use, et cetera. And this would really give us that longitudinal look of, are we, moving the needles? Do we need to take a look at, what's going on? But that way, you could see over 2, 4, 6, 8 years, et cetera, what the sentiment was with the community on these items. In addition, we'd be looking to do an annual report, likely at this committee, and a work session on some of the items that we are undertaking as part of the communications plan. And then, like many of our policy documents, evaluating and overhauling the communication plans at year 6. Moving to item C would be to create a language access policy to expand communications with individuals with limited English proficiency and other accessibility needs, to expand and standardize communication processes with external users, and really the focus being on interactive and innovative communication methods. So really trying to do, we have that statistically valid poll, but we want to make sure in the future that we, do some spot polling as we move forward and allow individuals not just to provide a comment, but to be able to vote or select different items. Again, expanding community access to important city documents, and then creating relationships and continuing to build capacity with historically underrepresented community members. So just like goal 1, we have that anticipated timeline, and you can see the light blue again is that implementation, and the teal represents kind of that enhancement and continuation. I'll pause here to see if there's any questions.
Shannon, this is Carolyn. One question just from this section is you had mentioned kind of broad stakeholder groups at one of the earlier slides, basically in your introduction, but do you all have like a broad stakeholder list that identifies topical groups, for example, churches or tribes or that sort of thing?
Councilmember Cox, we don't currently have a document like that. However, we do have a lot of information that would inform a document like that in the future. And one thing the Commission on Equity right now is working on is a community connectivity analysis. And the idea would be that this would serve as a foundation for something like you were just talking about in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, well, I will move on to our third and final goal, which is to proactively craft communications and establish a defined Lacy brand. And so really this would be, instead of being reactive, trying to get out in front of community members with information, doing that in a consistent way, and then also really working on some established Lacy brand items. So something specific to Lacy to really establish and enforce an identity and sense of place for the city. So some targeted actions within this goal area would be to have a citywide style guide, logo, flag use policy, et cetera. There's a couple of other policy enhancements. Refining key messages to create a unified voice, enhancing the city's image by developing a comprehensive marketing and branding campaign, expanding community partnerships with other organizations and stakeholders to leverage messages, continue to identify and refine future markets, targets and communication strategies, and implement the communication policies, which are included in Appendix B. And this is just a little bit more of a robust definition of internally how we communicate with external partners, and then providing an emphasis on disseminating important information on citywide initiatives. And under this, I would really underscore celebrating the city's successes and getting information out about new programs and policies in the future. You can see our goal 3 anticipated timeline. So I know Councilmember Cox brought up audiences. And so the communications plan, really our focus for target audiences are, residents of our city, our urban growth area, and other nearby residents, business communities, our community partners. This could include nonprofits, other governmental entities, school district, et cetera, underrepresented populations, visitors and tourists, elected officials, advisory board members and volunteers, and city staff. Another important part of the communications plan is performance and accountability indicators. We certainly want to see how we're doing with these new initiatives, and that's why it's going to be really important to set and define some indicators. And so, like I mentioned, having those web-based internal and external polls, the biannual survey on communication, performance, and preferences, but this could also just be community-wide sentiments, those annual report outs to the city council, having in-person engagement as well as hybrid engagement, remote engagement, taking a look at how we are performing across our social media and our online footprint, and taking a look at filed complaints, resolution times, web page usage, social media insights, our newsletter distribution growth, open rate, and engagement, and monitoring event participation, and doing some follow-up surveys at events to see how people are getting the information to get to those events too, so that we can help inform future programs to get information to the community. So for next steps, this list where we are, we're right here with the Community Relations Committee. Previously, the Commission on Equity did review this at their April meeting, and we're going to continue to get feedback on this moving into the May meeting. Also going to send out this draft communications plan for internal review with city staff to get some additional feedback. And then the plan would be to come to the full city council at a work session in June with a more finalized draft of the communications plan, and then hopefully looking for an adoption within the late June, early July timeframe. And that is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions or get any feedback from this committee on the draft communications plan.
Does anybody from the committee have anything?
I have a couple of things quickly. I just want to first say, brilliant work on this, Shannon. Thank you so much. I can see a lot of thought and time went into this. One thing that I was really, I'm really hoping to see, and you touched on it in goal 3, and I'm sure there is a plan, I'd just like to hear a little bit more about it, is kind of what I think has been the bane of our communications for a while now, and that's planning to tell our story better, especially accomplishments on sensitive topics like homeless response, that sort of thing, where Lacy tends to get hammered, but I think a lot of people just aren't aware of all that effort and all that we're putting into things. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Councilmember Cox, what we'd like to do is, I'm going to call them campaigns. So trying to organize, in advance, for policies and programs, and really having kind of a multi-dimensional, multi-pronged way of getting information out to individuals, where we can get ahead of, storylines to really, shape the Lacy narrative and all of the information on what we're doing out in the community within these various areas. So I'll just kind of walk through maybe what a hypothetical kind of campaign could look like. However, I will say with the caveat of these could all be very different just based on kind of the item in which we're trying to get information out. But it would be something where, we would want to get our internal stakeholders together and kind of review those key messaging points and make sure that we have established a key messaging point, make sure that that information is available to all of our internal stakeholders. So this would be something where you could go onto that intranet system that I just talked about previously, and you could find, the 5 or 10 best takeaways on a point, and that would be organized in one place. So everybody could access that information. And then building off of those 5 key points, we'd want to see what is the best vehicle for getting this information out. And I should really say, what are the best vehicles? Because we know we can't be one dimensional. We need to start looking at, is it a print campaign? And is it a digital campaign? Is it a video campaign? And what types of platforms are we going to be pushing all of this information out on? And I can say most likely it's going to be all 3 of those above. And just really having that really organized and early conversation so we can create those materials and get accustomed to that being part of, as we're looking to do new programs or policies or existing programs and policies, that is part of, the efforts that we need to do. So kind of coming together on what we think are the best vehicles for pushing out that information and moving forward with that, but then also using data that we're receiving, whether it's people who scan the QR codes on our Lacy Life, people who are watching our YouTube videos or accessing information on Facebook, really taking a look through that data to see if we can refine it for future campaigns, if we can have a more targeted outreach effort. So really it's going to be more getting departments together and getting information early on and creating that kind of multi-pronged approach and engagement across communication channels.
That's great. And if I could, you could indulge me on just one more, and and this may already be in the plan and I just missed it, but as this gets further along, are you thinking of having sort of a city speakers bureau where we're more aggressively going out and talking with different community groups, tapping, our city manager and directors, as well as council members who are, up to speed on various topics?
Hey, Councilmember Cox, I know that is certainly something the city manager has expressed of increasing our communication with our, external partners. And so that'll be part of this communications plan moving forward, doing that in a more organized way. And like we just talked about with the campaigns, the idea with that is to provide speakers with information in advance of those engagements so that they're able to provide consistent messaging and information to the community.
Excellent. Thank you for connecting those dots for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I did notice on goal 2 that, and I think it's, communication is just one of the aspects, but I think the community or Lacy does a good job of always evaluating and enhancing any of its services. And probably the most critical one is communication with the citizenry or the residents, what we're doing and the vision and trying to get them involved because it's their government and it's their city and it's their money. So yeah, this is great. I look forward to taking a deeper dive into this and watching it be implemented for the benefit and betterment of the community. So again, great job as always, Shannon. So does anybody have anything else?
I don't think so.
It's good. All right. Well, I'll adjourn this meeting at 11:22.
Alrighty.